Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. We have got a wonderful episode for you tonight. After we check in with tonight's co-host, we will do our Patriot News Roundup. We're going to discuss our fight with YouTube. We'll be bringing in Fayette County's Public Health Commissioner, Dr. Kraig Humbaugh, to discuss the Delta variant, where our county and our region are in terms of combating the coronavirus. And we're going to finish with a little musical serenade from our friend Nato while he plugs the Heartwood Music Festival scheduled for this Saturday just outside Frankfort, which he'll be performing at. Really should be an awesome show. Thank you so much for joining us. And hey, you there on the internet, perhaps listening on terrestrial radio, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? We know our Commonwealth has some work to do if we're going to beat back the tide of bad policy, from banning critical race theory to giving our tax dollars away to corporate interests, from partisan gerrymandering to ignoring the climate crisis. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, please join Progress Kentucky. It's easy. You can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you spend time on social media. Make sure to like and share and comment on our content. If you like what you're hearing from Kernels of Truth, share out the show. We could not make it easier for you people. Facebook, YouTube, every pod platform real humans use. We are there. Just share. Looking for an even better way to get involved? Hit up our volunteer link. Send us your information so we can get your help for one of our organizing projects. Progress Kentucky's steering committee meets weekly. We have a few different committees you can join to help our all-volunteer effort to shift Kentucky's political landscape by sharing the news and the information that we need. Whether through the megaphone of Kernels of Truth or through one-on-one organizing efforts, your involvement is welcome and necessary. Democracy is not a spectator sport, folks. We can't just sit back and cheer on Katie Ledecky. We have got to jump in the pool, but don't worry, it's heated. We've got you. But maybe you don't want to swim. Maybe you're more comfortable contributing floaties, goggles, buying some swim caps. That's absolutely welcome as well. We've got a goal of raising $1,500 for our current organizing project. We are still less than 20% of the way there. Less than 20% of the way there. We have got some work to do on that one. So it's a good project. It's going to make a difference. It's going to help us shift the landscape, but we need some resources to do it. Please head to our Act Blue website and consider making a donation. It could not be easier. So that's a little bit of shilling for Progress Kentucky. And now I'd like to move on to chat with our co-host. Make sure you know who's coming your way tonight. Who are you? Where are you? What does your protest sign say? Because of course, we're not just some talking heads on the interwebs. We are a digital demonstration, and we have got some protest signs tonight. So I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg, a deed-restricted community, as close to the growth boundary as you could possibly put a community here in Lexington. And my sign, and I have an actual sign, Ken I have a sign. It says, "Democracy ain't the Olympics. We can't sit back and watch as corporations lie to us," or something along those lines. It's hard to read because it's upside down and backwards. But yeah, that's my sign. And now I'm going to go to our wonderful co-host for the evening, our friend Denise Gray.
Hey everybody, it's a joy to be here. My name is Denise Gray, and I'm coming to you from the north side of Lexington, actually from Rookwood here in Lexington. And my protest sign says, which I don't have an actual one, but it says support Black women.
Boom. Wonderful. We got Doug Price, who's not with us tonight, but he is on the internet. His protest sign says "Get vaccinated," which is sad that becomes a protest sign, but I guess that's where we are in our society right now.
Well, then hold on. Maybe I should go back and say wear a darn mask. Okay, simplicity.
Also good. Yeah, and also unfortunately a protest sign these days.
I know, right?
All right.
Who would have thought?
I know. Where are we in this crazy, crazy world? And next, Ken from behind the boards, who is doing what Kimberly tells him to do.
What did I do? I didn't do anything.
He's wearing a mask.
I'm wearing a mask.
Do you wear a mask in the privacy of your own home, Ken?
I don't want to transmit COVID to through the internet. Maybe the variant will be COVID
Well,
variant
you sound
through
like
the
those
internet.
people down in the rural parts who refuse. Well, they don't believe it's real, so whatever.
I believe it's very real. It's absolutely real. But my protest sign is a little different than normal. I don't have one. I wanted to be like everybody else, so I didn't draw one. And my protest sign is it's not really a protest. It's more like a salute, because I think this person is incredible. Simone Biles is a hero,
Yes, she
and
is.
I absolutely support her in taking care of herself, and for her to get to the level of Olympian that she is, it's amazing. And so, like, there's no question about it. She is a hero.
Yes,
For
a
sure.
she
And
wrote,
that's
and
a
he wrote.
wonderful segue into news of the week, because we got to talk about the Olympics. There's just so much to talk about, and it's, you know, phenomenal, I think, how much Kentucky is showing up for the Tokyo Games, right? So we have a couple of gold medals have already been won by folks with key connections to our fair Commonwealth. Lots more possible in the rest of these, 2 weeks of international competition. But literally dozens of Olympic athletes have a tie to Kentucky. Of course, folks have probably heard about the first woman to win a gold in U.S. foil, a discipline of fencing, Lee Keifer, who's also a student at the UK Med School. She attended Dunbar High School, and she beat defending champion, I cannot say this name, Inna Deriglazova of Russia, 15-13 in the women's foil finals. And apparently you need 15 points to win in a foil match, because that's something I did not know. I love these sports. It just came out of nowhere. Like, I guess they actually do compete every single year, but yeah, I only ever hear about them every 4 years, I suppose. But amazing effort. Also, Will Shaner of UK won in air rifle. Best thing about Will Shaner, he lives in Rifle, Colorado, which I thought was highly appropriate. But competes for UK, which is a national, I think a national champion. And then another member of UK shooting team claimed a medal. Mary Tucker won silver in the pairs 10-meter shooting. So that's pretty phenomenal. But yeah, over 40 athletes who are competing have a Kentucky connection. I will say this, they're not all US connections. There's a lot of international students who come through UK and Louisville and all these different major programs and then go home and, represent their home country in the Olympics, which is pretty awesome to see. But I am pretty stoked about the Kentucky efforts so far. And of course, when track and field kicks off, there's going to be a ton of Kentucky connections to keep an eye open for. Sydney McLaughlin, who's the favorite in the 400-meter hurdles, really an amazing athlete there. And I'm going to say, I think my favorite. One of my favorite stories, though, in the Louisville connection to athletics in the Olympics, is a guy who's actually at his 4th Olympics. He represents the USA, but he does not compete. His name is Tom Nebb. He's the mechanic for USA mountain biking. And there's rain in the forecast, so his job gets a lot harder. Mud in the gears, lots more bike washing, chain replacements, cleanings, cable replacements, all that stuff. It really does take a village to keep these bikes running well at the highest competitive levels. And it's really amazing. This guy from Louisville who, started as a bike racer himself, he moved out to Colorado to like get in on, the amazing mountain biking out there, and now has his own store. And this is his 4th Olympics coming to help the team, which is awesome. So I don't know who else has a story or a sport that they're following right now, or anyone else going kind of Olympics crazy like me and my family, or you guys just like, nah, I'm not watching.
Well, I have to confess something to you all today. I have not watched the Olympics.
What?
I have not. I watched the opening ceremonies, and that right there was fantastic, with the drones and with the when they acted out the symbols. That was athletic in itself. But I had a bad vibe about certain things, like so much pressure on our athletes, and I was worried about how that might play out. And Yeah, and the reaction, possible reaction from that. But I do plan to tune in to the track and field and to the diving portions for sure. What about you, Ken? If you don't mind, I'm bringing you in here.
When did the Olympics become political? I mean, why is this a thing? I mean, I haven't seen 25 minutes of the Olympics. I haven't seen 25 seconds.
Let me tell you the history
but
of
I'm
politics.
hearing all sorts.
Yeah. Back in the was it the 70s with the Black Power? With the was that the 70s or the 1968 or so, when when we had two athletes who won medals representing the United States raise their fists up and saying Black Power and protesting for the mistreatment of Blacks and African Americans here in the United States. They ended up being stripped of their medals, and turns out the lone athlete that placed bronze or silver, I can't recall which one, he received backlash because of that. He really did. So there's always been a little politics everywhere, politicking.
They're doing that to
Tommy Smith and John Carlos in the '68 Olympics, and then the Australian guy who was there next to him.
Yeah, he had nothing to do with it. He happened but he was ostracized by his country and just for being there, I guess, for winning a medal. There you go.
I think there was a floor routine in gymnastics where a gymnast.
Oh, the Black, yes.
Kind of Black Lives Matter, element to her program, really.
And the soccer team, the women's soccer team,
taking a knee. Didn't they take a knee? Is that right?
Yeah. So speaking of, yeah. So I think I'll be honest. These athletes to me are true patriots, right? They're working hard to bring our country glory and recognition through the excellence of sport. Kind of a competition on a fair playing field. Let's not talk about Russia, right? Some folks, however, disagree, right? So Trump has bashed the women's soccer team. They cheering their defeat by Sweden.
The men who cannot run up and down the field anyways. But carry on. I'll let you go on with the story.
I'd love to see him try to play soccer.
Me too.
Or
who can play soccer?
A cart. Can this guy even play golf without a cart?
No. Your governor can play soccer. He was a good soccer player.
Yeah.
You say that.
Yes.
Bashir, yeah. No, he was fantastic. He was really quite a good soccer player.
Was he better than you, Ken?
Well, we were on the same team, so it wasn't.
You always know who's the better team, player on the team. You always know.
Because you attended Henry Clay?
Yeah.
Oh. Carry on.
All right, so I think we've got a clip of Trump, though.
Yes, please.
Trump, Patriot Trump, right? Can
Wokeism makes you lose, ruins your mind, and ruins you as a person. You become warped, you become demented. The U.S. women's soccer team is a very good example of what's going on. Earlier this week, they unexpectedly lost to Sweden 3-0. And Americans were happy about it.
Americans that you're talking to, Trump, were happy about it. Americans cheering in your audience were happy about it. Really just disgusting. Other conservative commentators have cheered the men's basketball team's loss to France. Shamefully, these folks have a very different view of patriotism. But I think our next story actually gets right at that. So Denise, take it away.
Oh, I've never heard of America. Well, yes, I have. Cheering when we lose. I thought it was USA, USA all day. But I guess not if you protesters believe in the First Amendment. Okay, moving on to this story. Over the weekend, everyone listen to this. I learned about an event slated to take place in Muhlenberg, Kentucky in September. This event is, according to the event's promoters, is set to be the, quote, the biggest Patriot Rally of the year, a true reunion of we the people, unquote. So I guess you heard the dog whistles. Let's see. The use of the words like big, patriot, and stating that one group of people is somehow better than another. True American, right? This event claims to have confirmation from some of the biggest and far-right conservatives in this conservative realm. Names like General Flynn, Lynn Wood, oh, sister girl, Candace Owens, who is no sister of mine, Mike Lindell, and many others who I really don't feel the urge to mention. Get this also. There will be top of the line musical entertainment from the top Christian and country singers, all of whom I've never heard of. And I listen to all genres of music. That being okay. So that being said, if some of you in the middle of this pandemic have $250 of spare change, you too can purchase a ticket. And word on the street is that you can purchase a VIP ticket for $500, just a little small chunk change. According to the promoters, they slated that they were going to have a population of maybe 50,000 people. I think some numbers are being far blown out of proportion there. Much like our former leader, these promoters seem to have an ego that doesn't match their intelligence levels, because they could not spell Muhlenberg, you all. They couldn't spell the place they were going to go. But to all my Democrats and those who believe in all that's right in the world and have the common sense, I know that there have been some death threats on you all. So you all be strong in the month of September. Be safe. What do you all think about this? Oh, roll that.
Anyhow, this is one of our top quality guns, and
Maybe I'll find somebody in Washington, D.C.
For you.
It's just a clip of Michael Flynn making a threat with this new gun that he received from this event. Well, my computer is all over the place right now, so I'm sorry about that, guys. Michael Flynn.
Oh, is the show on? I think it is.
Michael Flynn in a church gets an AR-15 or some other type of assault rifle.
Pew pew pew. Yeah. Isn't that Christian-like?
And says, maybe I'll find someone in Washington D.C. to use it on. Are we all like just aware of how horrible these humans truly are? These Trump stands are. They have drank the Kool-Aid. They paid, an outrageous price for the Kool-Aid because Trump shook them down. Think about this event in Muhlenberg County, $250 to hear the My Pillow guy and kind of Traitors R Us. It is truly phenomenal. I will say this: it's nice they're gathering in one place. I think Merrick Garland should go on and check in on some treason charges. Mike Flynn, I think Vindman, Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who of course was one of the key witnesses in the when we finally made it clear that Trump was using his office to get political gain, right?
2 counts.
He fired, released from his role there, but has, I think, really found his voice, and he's writing a lot about kind of how our nation needs to proceed with some of this stuff. And I think he's gone after Flynn as it might not be treason, but it's absolutely officer, it's behavior unbecoming an officer. So he could actually be, they make the case that this guy could be court-martialed for his behavior, right? Because he's the one who said military coups should be explored, or there's no reason we shouldn't have a military coup in the United States after what happened in Myanmar. So yeah, the guy is just horrible. And, he's going to show up in Muhlenberg County. I'd say, meet him there, Department of Justice. And, these guys need to be held accountable for their just seditious, Flynn was one of the chief proponents of the January 6th, insurrection. And these guys need to face the consequences. Like, how many people they arrested so far? Like dozens and dozens of folks have been arrested across the country. I think
500,
nearly or over a dozen from Kentucky alone. And it shouldn't just be the folks who smashed the windows. It should be the folks who fan the flames. And obviously with the January 6th investigation happening, now's the time, right?
Especially, yes. Yesterday's testimony was so moving. And so, like, for me, it was for the people that claim to support the police. They're the biggest hypocrites, because those lives on January 6th, those police officers' lives will never be the same because of their criminal, terroristic actions. And they need to be held accountable from the top to the bottom. Don't just arrest those 500. I need to see those who were fanning those flames locked up. And, at the beginning, in all through Trump's campaign, he stated, lock her up. It's time to lock him up. And all those who helped fan those, fan those flames. We have people, where to find them. Some of them are going to be in Muhlenberg, so lock them up.
So Patriots, right? Real Patriot Rally there in Muhlenberg County. They'll probably boo some U.S. athletes they disagree with, right? People who've actually sacrificed for their nation. But these guys are looking to just get enriched by it. $250 a ticket. Give me a break.
Why are we promoting this event? I'm not exactly sure.
We're not promoting it. I'm making people aware, because I was like, of all places, why don't you come to Lexington or Louisville?
Did you listen to that clip and you thought we were like promoting it? Are we encouraging people to go? No, like people need to know, and people in Muhlenberg maybe should step away from Muhlenberg for the weekend. But yeah, this is definitely. I don't think we're selling tickets. That's for sure.
Which we the people is this for? Which we the people? Like the one celebrating the Olympic team loss, like the ones guilty about lying about Russia, the insurrection.
It's the real patriots who think blue
person
lives
is he
matter,
trying to assassinate?
But call a cop, a black cop, the N-word because they found out that he voted for Biden, right?
Yes, that right there.
When did being a convicted traitor become patriotic?
I mean, these right here are backwards times. And I heard yesterday, someone told me these are the end of the days, when, because opposite is up is now down, down is now up, patriot is a criminal, This
is like Nuremberg rally kind of stuff.
Up is down now. That's where we are, because actually our next story gets right into that. So if folks missed it on social media, we had some challenges with the YouTube algorithm apparently last week, although Ken has a different theory. But for now, I guess correcting COVID misinformation is misinformation in the eyes of YouTube, or their artificial intelligence that scans their videos. So Ken's guess is that we made Rand Paul supporters angry and they flagged the video, which, I don't necessarily dispute that one, because the most traction we get on YouTube is when we have Rand Paul in there, and it's his, his supporters who love to push back on our characterization of his shameful behavior. So last week's segment highlighting that behavior, Fauci v. Rand Paul, with the quote of the season, "Senator Paul, you do not know what you're talking about." It got our entire Kernels of Truth episode removed from YouTube. So disappointing both our followers and Rand's. But the move raises some very, I think, critical issues, right? So clearly, we've got to talk about COVID. Clearly, you have to set we're Kernels of Truth. We got to set the record straight when our politicians are misleading or lying, as Dr. Fauci basically accused Rand Paul of, after Rand Paul accused him of lying to Congress. It was quite an exchange. But the Kentucky cases are up, as they are all across the country. 783 new cases, I think, day before yesterday. The positivity rate is nearly 8%, which is where we were back in February. Our cases are trending in the wrong way, and vaccine misinformation is infecting folks. It's killing folks. Governor Beshear is recommending schools mask up across the Commonwealth. The CDC is updating their recommendations. And YouTube has decided that countering misinformation is misinformation. That's insane. Meanwhile, you got Robert Kennedy Jr., Children's Health Defense. They're up. They're putting out videos that are truly, misinforming the public. Thousands and thousands of views propagating misinformation about vaccines. Like, that guy needs to be taken off the platform. If you reliably push misinformation, there needs to be accountability. At the Center for Countering Digital Hate, they did some analysis of where vaccine misinformation, COVID misinformation are coming from. 12 folks are responsible for 65% of the COVID misinformation circling the internet. And these folks still have profiles in good standing on a lot of these different platforms. So, I mean, if you are interested in ensuring folks like Rand Paul are called out on social media for misinformation about COVID, you can find opportunities to help spread the word kind of on our Twitter feed. That's certainly an issue we're going to continue to pay attention to. And, looks like the original video has been put back on YouTube. So last week's episode of Kernels of Truth is back in its kind of full and complete form, which is okay. It shouldn't have been taken down to begin with because there were no lies there. There was no misinformation there. But then, Ken wanted to make sure it was up there. So he kind of like stripped out the segment on COVID, and then that got flagged and was taken down. So like, it's very confusing, which even if you don't mention it, I don't know, it's insane. So Ken, what's your take on it?
Well, when our content was blocked, it was very confusing. So I'm like, why is it confusing? Usually the stuff gets blocked or taken down because we're using a clip from what somebody says somewhere about some random thing, like off of ABC or CBS, like one of if we grabbed a clip from The View, or I don't know why we would do that, or there's some morning shows in the morning, they're very strict on their copyright claim, but the video said it was medical misinformation. So I presume that it was the clip of Rand and Fauci talking to each other because that was the only medical information that we had in the video itself. I'm not a doctor. Aaron is not a doctor. I don't think we have any doctors. Well, maybe tonight we'll have some doctors on our show, but we don't have any doctors on our show. Most of the time, when the content is taken down, I know why, and it's usually it makes sense. But this time, it doesn't make sense. And I guess YouTube is cracking down. I know that Facebook is cracking down. Everyone is cracking down. And the reason I think it's Rand Paul supporters that are flagging us is just because, they're the only people that interact with us on YouTube. So they just hit the flag button, and after it gets so many flags, it just, it gets taken down no matter what, even if it's correct information or not. And we do our best. I mean, I sit here every late Tuesday, all day Wednesday, fact checking and making sure that our content is accurate. And I know that everybody else on this show does as well. So I sent out appeal after appeal, and I think this will resolve in time. Typically, when YouTube's algorithm picks it up, it does kind of work itself out in time, but it is scary, that I do feel like it's a censorship thing that we are being taken down, but I also understand that they're being more careful about the topic and the content that they are allowing, even though it'll take me 3 seconds to go out and find misinformation on YouTube, Facebook, or whatever. So I don't know, but yeah. When I pulled the clip from Rand Paul talking to Fauci out of the show, I expected it to to go back on and just be able to be uploaded fine. And apparently, because it has the keywords and the codes and such that it has, you know, they're being very methodical about it. And so working that out is very difficult. So yes, Aaron is correct. The video eventually, we got this note in the mail saying that we reviewed the appeal and you know, we made it right, but it's frustrating for sure, because we have all these, you know, projects that we're trying to do. We're trying to get out the vaccination. We're trying to motivate people to get vaccinated and to go out into the community and talk to their neighbors and say, you know, this is a problem, like with the variants and stuff like that. So it is very frustrating as a content producers. Aaron?
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for that take on it. And to be clear, we don't get taken down frequently. Ken was like, when Ken was telling the story, it's like, you know, when we get taken down, he knows why we get taken down. We haven't had a lot of problems with, you know, with our stream. It's definitely,
No,
but yes.
This is off of 20 years or since
Right.
2006.
Yeah.
I mean, I've probably had content that was taken down 5 times for copyright, never for medical misinformation.
Right.
It's
yeah,
always
I just wanted to clear that for the record. Ken knows how to avoid getting his material taken down, which is to not use long clips of copyrighted material for sure. But you know, there's also a fair use, you know, point. If we're a news show, we're talking about news, we can show clips of the news. It's what news shows do. But yeah, at any rate, I just wanted to make sure we're all clear there. And thank you, Ken, for the diligence and ensuring that, you know, that the facts are there, right? We are kernels of truth. We're not looking to mislead anyone. We want to set the record straight. And speaking of, I think actually our next guest is all about that. So we want to make sure that, you know, the public has an understanding of where things are, as you know, because we're not in a great spot. Lexington is reporting 10 times as many COVID-19 cases in July as we were in June. So we are trending in the wrong direction. And despite being one of the leaders in vaccination rates in the state, you know, things are not great right now. CDC, as we mentioned, has revised its mask recommendation, urging even the vaccinated to wear masks indoors. And really, what do we need to do to get ourselves out of this troubling time? And that's why we're bringing our guest, Dr. Kraig Humbaugh, who is the Commissioner of Health for the Lexington-Fayette County Health Department. Dr. Humbaugh, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks for sharing some of your time with us.
You're mute. Okay.
Thanks very much, Aaron. Good to be with you all tonight.
Yeah,
Yes.
we're really glad to have you, because it just seems like, you know, we thought we were kind of heading towards the light at the end of the tunnel, and now with this Delta variant, it seems like a lot of that is in question. What's your take on the state of COVID in the Bluegrass?
Right. So let me start out by correcting one thing that you just said. So yes, we are seeing a lot more cases, but where we get the 10 times is 10 times more. So we were reporting less than 10 cases per day, okay, in Lexington residents the first week or at the beginning of July. Now we're at the end of July and we're reporting 77 cases per day. Okay, so that's the increase that we're seeing, okay, from 7 cases per day to 77 cases. All right.
Yeah. So that is 10 times more cases.
10 times more cases just through this month. Okay.
Got you. Okay.
All right. But not compared to last month. Okay. All right.
Just in July.
Right. So the increase has happened relatively rapidly over the last 3 to 4 weeks. The rate in which cases are coming in has gone up dramatically. Okay. So that's the point that we want to bring home. And you know, why is that? A lot of that is due to the Delta variant. I know we're going to talk more about that. It's more contagious, and unfortunately, it's producing more cases in Lexington. But some of that is also because restrictions were relaxed about 6 weeks or so. and there is more mixing and less physical distancing going on. And then some people have been taking vacations to spots that have higher rates than we do. So, all of that combined is producing larger numbers of cases here in Lexington. And we're actually right now on a par of case numbers per day, case counts per day, that's very similar to what we saw in late February and early March.
And so you mentioned the Delta variant. And I know that when you do testing for COVID, you aren't necessarily testing, which type of COVID people are getting, right? So I don't know how much testing we're doing right now to figure out, what's Delta, what's not.
Yeah.
But what's
So
your current estimate?
That's a good point. So when you get a COVID test, most of the time you're getting a PCR test. That's the gold standard that people usually get. So there's also rapid tests, but the PCR is the gold standard. And it's telling you if you're shedding COVID virus, okay, the virus that causes the COVID illness. But it doesn't tell us the genetic component of that particular virus or what strain it is. But the CDC and state health department as well, they look at or do surveillance in a specific random samples of different COVID positive tests. And basically they're sequencing those. And we know now that Delta is the predominant circulating variant, both in the United States and in Kentucky. Now, the traditional variant circulated for many months. Then the Alpha variant, which many called the UK variant because it came from the United Kingdom, right? And it took over and was our predominant variant, and now the Delta is. So let's talk a little bit about variants so that people understand, but they're simply mutations, genetic mutations in the original virus. And mutations occur all the time, and we expect that to happen. The problem is sometimes they become variants that are more dangerous or variants of concern. And that happens when the mutation makes the original virus easier to spread. And that's the problem with Delta. Another concern could be that the variant is making people sicker, okay? In this case, we don't have, at least yet, evidence to suggest that the Delta variant causes worse illness, okay? It does cause bad illness, okay, but we don't know that it's worse necessarily. And then the other reason we would be worried about a variant that might pop up is that it's less affected by the immunity that's produced by vaccines, okay? So most of these variants die out because they never become more contagious than the original, or they don't produce any of these other bad things that we worry about. But when any of those three things happen, then that makes them variants of concern and more worrisome. And what's happened with Delta is because it's more contagious, it's just taken over as the predominant variant. And that will happen with all types of epidemics. When you have a more contagious strain, then it becomes the one that's circulating the most frequently.
That makes sense. And then I guess one thing that makes it so infectious is that the viral load with Delta is what I understand. And again, I'm not a doctor. Seems much higher, right? So and that I think even if the vaccine is doing its job and keeping us from the vaccinated folks from getting sent to the hospital, right? So you might get COVID, but it might be very mild. You're not going to be in most cases, right? I mean, these are 95, 99% effective, whatever, so most of the time you're not going to have the kind of worst case scenario for COVID. But it does seem like with that viral load, that means there can be transmission even if you're vaccinated. Is my understanding there correct?
So you're right in the sense that evidence would suggest that people with Delta shed more viral particles. So then that can make it potentially more contagious. And there's also some evidence so far, again, these are limited studies because Delta variant has just taken over, recently. The evidence is that the particles may be produced earlier in the illness. In other words, you have higher viral loads on day 2 or day 3 as opposed to day 4 to day 6. Does that make sense? And so that you're more contagious earlier on in the, and normally people are contagious a day or 2 before they even develop symptoms. So, and that's what's been so hard. It's been such a major challenge, is that we know that, you know, there's a certain percentage of people, and it's not small, that have asymptomatic illness, and yet they're able to spread disease. And that's been the challenge throughout the last 18 months of the pandemic. But to get back to your question, yes, the vaccines are very effective. They are the best tool we have against COVID. But they are designed to prevent severe illness and hospitalization, and they are still doing that very well, and they appear to be doing that very well against the Delta variant, okay? However, the Delta variant is, in some cases, evading some of the antibodies or immunity that's produced by the vaccines, and producing generally mild illness in some people, okay? So, but when they get that illness, then they can potentially pass it on to others. So just whenever people are infected, regardless of whether they've been fully vaccinated or not, they can produce viral particles that then can infect others. So I hope that's clear. Again, we're seeing there's a big contrast between people who are fully vaccinated, who are in the hospital, very small numbers, versus much higher numbers of people who are unvaccinated who are being hospitalized at this point. So,
and those are what you would call breakthrough infections, right? Those are the folks who've been vaccinated but still
right.
have.
And this month we're looking at about a quarter of our cases here in Lexington being breakthrough infections, but generally most of them are mild or asymptomatic infections.
I have a question here, since I'm going to jump in.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I've been trying to jump.
It's the Olympics.
Yes, this was the Olympics of questions attempting. But have you seen, or have we seen here in Lexington, an increase in the hospitalizations?
We have seen some increase in the hospitalizations, but we're not at levels that we saw at the height of the pandemic here in Lexington, which was December through, early March. So we have as many cases as we had in late February, early March, but we don't have the hospitalizations yet. Now, hospitalizations tend to follow a peak in cases because, it takes a while for people to get diagnosed, get in the hospital, et cetera. But our hope, and so far it seems to be the case, is that because there's a certain percentage of folks who have been vaccinated in Lexington, that's going to continue to keep our hospitalizations and deaths lower than what we saw during our peak here, when we didn't have vaccinations, or vaccinations were just starting to be available to the public. So let's talk a little bit about vaccination rates, because that's really the key, right, to getting community immunity. And we're obviously not there yet, because we're still seeing transmission person to person in Lexington. So on one hand, we're doing well if we look at our coverage rates compared to other counties in Kentucky and in some other places, not all, but some other places in the United States. If we look at those that are the most vulnerable to dying from complications of COVID-19, almost 90%, CDC, this is CDC's reporting, they say that almost 90% of our 65 and olders have been fully vaccinated. That's pretty amazing. So that's really good news, and hopefully will help us lower the complications of COVID. However, we're looking at about 2/3 of our adult population being fully vaccinated, and 3/4 of our adult population having at least one vaccination right now. And that's not considered to be fully vaccinated. It may provide partial protection, but certainly with Delta out there, I don't think you want to gamble on just having one. So, it's best to have the full vaccination, and it takes 14 days after that for your body to produce full immunity from that vaccine. So again, and we can talk about the different types of vaccines. 2 of them require 2 doses for the full series. That's the Pfizer and the Moderna products. Those are the most common. The Johnson & Johnson product is the one and done. It only requires 1. So after 14 days after that vaccination, then you're protected you've built the protection from that vaccine. So I think we're doing well in certain categories of folks, but we still have a lot of work to do, especially in younger folks in our community. And of course, we're trying to get teens vaccinated for back to school. Now, our 12 to 17-year-old population, the only vaccine that's currently authorized for use for that population is the Pfizer vaccine. And to be fair to them, it's only been available for this population since I think the 2nd week of May. So for a few months now. But as we look to them going back into in-person classroom learning, we want to try to get as many of those folks vaccinated as we can. And right now, we believe only about a quarter of those of that age group have been fully vaccinated. So there again, they were late to the game, not their fault, because they didn't have a vaccine that was really approved for that group. But now that one is, we want to try to get that group higher coverage rates.
Absolutely.
So are there any set locations for the parents to take their children age 12 to 17 to get vaccinated?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Denise. We've been talking about it a lot here at the health department. There's been a vaccination blitz or a vaccine-a-thon, shot-a-thon that's been going on at school locations. It started the first week of July at different school locations in conjunction with Fayette County Public Schools, Health First Bluegrass, Wild Health, and other partners. And then this week is 3 weeks later for the second vaccination. So it's being repeated all over the city. But if people didn't get their first one the first week, they can come in and get that first one this week. So, and if family and friends want to come in, at all those sites, they're welcome to do so. The other place to go is on the city's site. It gives a list of places that you can get vaccinated. We have a link to that on our webpage, which is www.lfchd.org. That stands for Lexington-Fayette County Health Department, or you can go to lexingtonhealthdepartment.org.
Excellent.
That's great. And so tell us a little bit about so you got the poster behind your shoulder there.
Man, one more thing I have to say, that we give vaccine, all 3 products here at the health department.
I was waiting for you to say that.
At the health department now, I've got to shamelessly promote our own vaccine.
I was waiting for that.
Here, but Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you can call and get a same day appointment, okay, to get whichever brand you're comfortable getting.
Right there on Newtown Pike.
Perfect. And then, so the Let's Do This campaign, I see the poster over your shoulder there. What's that all about?
Yeah, so the idea is, to promote vaccination. That vaccine is the best tool, as we said before, that it's safe, that it's effective, especially in preventing hospitalizations and deaths. We really need everybody to be vaccinated. We need a level of community immunity where we can stop that person-to-person transmission. As we talked about before, we're not there yet. So we continue to try to promote, everyone getting fully vaccinated at this point.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of misinformation. We talked about that earlier in the show. Folks like Robert Kennedy Jr., who are spreading a lot of fear and distrust. Folks like Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham, who are constantly raising questions about vaccination. There's a lot of just swirling internet rumors about it. What are the things that you have heard, or are there specific, things that you would like to just make sure that we set the record straight? Things that, are popping up more often in Lexington and in other areas? Anything that you know?
Well, again, I think we've talked about some of those things. So I think we have to be honest that no vaccine is 100%, but when they're over 80%, that's pretty darn effective. Our flu vaccine is usually about 50% each year, and we advise people to get that because they're, twice as less likely to get sick than the next guy who didn't get it, right?
Right.
So yes, they're not perfect, but again, they're the best tool that we have. We have other tools in our toolbox. We were using them before the vaccine started. We'll be using them after, we'll continue to use them, but the vaccine is our best tool. There have been some rare side effects reported. The media has talked a lot about that. We acknowledge that has occurred. But remember, there have been over 300 million vaccines given in the United States, and these are extremely rare. The vaccine is definitely your best bet. It's much more of a risk not to be vaccinated than to be vaccinated. So the benefits of vaccination far outweigh the risks of the vaccine.
One thing I've heard, just even in my own kind of personal family life, folks who have had COVID previously before there was a vaccine, and are saying, "Look, well, I'm not going to get the vaccine because I've had COVID, so I've got natural immunity now." What's your take on that?
And there can be some protection definitely from natural immunity, but the vaccine boosts that immunity, and so it's recommended that everyone, regardless of whether they've had COVID or not, be fully vaccinated. And we just don't know reliably how much natural immunity is going to be produced after COVID. And it may depend on your immune system and the case that you had. And that's somewhat true with the vaccine as well. We know that, immunocompromised folks are, less likely to have the type of response that somebody who has a fully operating immune system has. And that's one of the problems is that, vaccines, we still have to be aware that there are folks like that in the community who may be fully vaccinated and yet they still don't have a huge immune response. Does that make sense? And the protection that provides.
Yeah. And then I guess, people who talk about not wanting to have their kids vaccinated because kids' cases of COVID seem very, modest, slight, barely noticeable compared to those who are most vulnerable. What's your answer to folks like, who are weighing that consideration before encouraging or supporting their kids' decision to get vaccinated?
I think getting our kids vaccinated is one of the ways that we can get our kids back into in-person learning, which I think everybody agrees is the best option for us if we can do it with minimal risks. And that's one of the ways, again, one of the tools that we have and the best tool. Yes, you're right that most children do well. There are going to be exceptions, just like anything else, but most kids do well with COVID. They either have mild cases or they are not symptomatic at all. However, it's a fallacy to say that kids can't spread COVID. They can. They're not necessarily super spreaders like they may be with the flu, but like the rest of us, they can spread, and especially older children. So again, those are all reasons. As long as we have a proportion of the community who's not vaccinated or not immune, we're going to continue to see spread in the community. So if nothing else, if they're not doing it for themselves, they may want to do it for grandpa or grandma or their loved one, just to help us and their neighbor prevent more cases in the community.
Right. And I know that I think I saw it recently in the newspaper, that you're recommending that, schools go ahead with masks. Similar recommendation came from the governor and Dr. Stack, I believe. But have you been in contact with the superintendent's office? I know we have a brand new superintendent who's being forced to deal with this as like his number one first big decision. And I saw some video of people who showed up at the first meeting there to rail for freedom, education freedom, so their kids shouldn't have to wear masks to be free. But yeah, what's your conversation look like there?
Sure. Well, certainly these are tough decisions, but there have been a lot of tough decisions made in the last 18 months, right? And we've all been through a lot in the last 18 months. Unfortunately, the pandemic continues to evolve, as we've been talking about for the last half hour or so. I mean, things are changing. There's always it's throwing us for new curves, right? And that's what crafty, wily viruses do. I mean, so that's part of it. But we are in contact. We've been for many months. We have regular meetings with Dr. Ligon's and his team. And of course, now he's part of that team. So we'll continue to do that. And we continue to share our best recommendations based on the best science that we know about with that team.
Wonderful. Well, I think you've been incredibly generous with your time. I know.
Do you think
Ken was interested
you think if people
in asking
aren't
questions, so I'll go ahead and let him ask his question. Ken.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I was wondering if enough Kentuckians don't get vaccinated, do you think there's going to be a Kentucky variant?
Well, I can't predict that, Ken. But what I will say is that as we continue to have circulating virus, that's when variants pop up. So the more people who get infected, the more chances there are for variants of concern to occur. That's not just in Kentucky, that's worldwide, because we're all humans, right? We're all susceptible to whatever variants end up, circulating. So yes, that's a possibility, but it's really humankind. We all need to get vaccinated as a world and get immunity as a world if we want to see fewer variants occur. Right. That makes sense, because they basically arise as mutations within somebody who's been infected.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Dr. Humbaugh. We really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your information with us, and we hope that everyone listen closely and share this information with their neighbors throughout the Bluegrass and throughout Kentucky, so we can be as safe as possible moving forward.
All right. Thank you again. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a great night. All right, so we're going to move on to our action events calendar, and again, a big thanks to Dr. Humbaugh there. But one thing that we've been mentioning a few different times is the Let's Do This campaign, and we are a big fan of it. It is a campaign to get the city of Lexington and surrounding communities vaccinated. It's doing it through canvassing, so knocking on doors. If you want to join other community members for a neighborhood canvass, more information can be found at letsdothis.nationbuilder.com. You can sign up to volunteer. I know there are canvases happening the next couple of weekends, so really a great opportunity to let people know about pop-up vaccination clinics or where people can go to get vaccinated. I know it doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but I think it's a really great way to show that you care about your community by helping to get them vaccinated and make sure folks are safe. So, but if you're looking for a little more fun in your activism, we have got a wonderful event coming up this weekend. So thrilled to share with you. We want to make sure everyone knows about the fast approaching Kentucky Heartwood Music Festival. It's going to be this Saturday, July 31st from 3 to 10 at the Millville Community Center. And we're really thrilled to bring on Progress Kentucky member Nate Orshan, or NATO, because he's going to be performing. Nate, you're pretty psyched to do some live music?
Oh, yeah. Thanks so much for having me as a guest and promoting Kentucky Heartwood Music Festival this Saturday, July 13th in Millville.
And so if anyone's confused, where is Millville?
Right.
You basically, if you can find Frankfurt, you can find Millville. You just go to Frankfurt, then bang a left, and it's the next town to the south of us. Basically, it's where Castle and Key Distillery is. Very fine distillery. It's just
So you might think you're in Frankfurt, but you're in Millville, right?
yeah.
So
I think it's so. I think it's. I'm not sure whether it's Franklin County or Woodford County, but it's very close by.
Cool.
And they've got this this community center, the Millville Community Center, that they've been holding this this music festival, and I think this is the 15th one, but they missed last year, so they can't really call it the 15th annual, but 15th quasi-annual.
15th annual with an asterisk or something.
Right, exactly, like someone's like Pete Rose's sports record, and so what is Kentucky Heartwood? It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This is a big fundraiser for this great nonprofit, and what they do is, reading from their mission statement, they seek to protect and restore the integrity, stability, and beauty of Kentucky's native forests and biotic communities through research, education, advocacy, and community engagement. I think of them as they're like the Lorax of Kentucky. They speak for the Kentucky trees, and in fact, they've been around since '92, and they started out really working on issues pertaining to Daniel Boone National Forest, which we've all been to and love dearly. But they were concerned about logging and mining, ATVs, tearing stuff up. So they've been advocating for really a better natural environment for our natural parks and anything that's sort of wilderness. So that's
awesome.
what they're all
I know.
about.
I've only lived in Kentucky for a few years, but the reputation of Heartwood goes beyond Kentucky. I mean, they focus their energy on the state, but they do amazing work that's well recognized throughout the region as preeminent forest defenders. And Denise Gray, you have been to the Daniel Boone National Forest, because that's where the Red River Gorge is. And if you've been to Red River Gorge, you've been into the Daniel Boone National Forest.
Well, I go places, I just don't know where I am. I go everywhere.
I stopped going because it was so busy. I feel like giving it a break.
It is a popular spot for sure, but it's a big national forest, and there's lots of spots that are a little more off the beaten track for sure. But you are part of this music festival because we know you and your musical prowess. We listen to it the beginning and the end of every show, but I'm psyched that you're going to be recognized there by Heartwood. Anyone else playing? Who else we're gonna hear when we come out to this music festival?
So I'm one of two sort of featured acts, adult acts, you should say. The second being a band, Native Invaders, who I know nothing about, but they have a cool picture, and I love the name. So they're going to be on. I'm going to be on around 5. They're going to be on around, I think, 7:45, 8, if I got that right. And in between, there's going to be music competition for kids. There's 2 separate ones. Let me just get this right. So at 4, there's a music competition for the 8 to 12-year-olds, and at 6, there's a music competition for 13 to 18-year-olds. Last I heard, they had a few 8 to 12-year-olds, but it's not as many as they had hoped. So, Lexington people, if you have an 8 to 12-year-old with any musical talent, and you think it would be a good opportunity for them to get on stage and strut their stuff a little bit, please come and actually get in touch with them at kyheartwood.org.
Is it not 8 to 18? I thought it was 8.
There's 2 segments, right? So
yes, that's right. Oh, that's a great point. Yeah, they divide it into 2. So there's like an 8 to 12-year-old segment, and then there's a 13 to 18, right?
So all are welcome. Please, no recorders. Not a fan of recorder music. But hey, your music, I'm a big fan of, NATO. So can you play us a song?
Please.
Oh, thank you. Well, I just happen to have my guitar with me. I'm always walking around the house with it. It's just, this is what I do, making the coffee. Da 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 da.
I hope somebody asked me to sing a song.
My whole life has been leading up to this moment. So thank you. This is this is going out to all the folks who, like me, are sort of watching these billionaires building rockets and rocketing themselves into outer space and thinking, oh my goodness, we've got so much better use for your money here on Earth. What are you doing? And so this is Stay in Your Spaceship. I'll get it one of these days. Here's the real song. I catch a ride through all the crises of my legendary generation. I have my airlock shut so tightly when the frightened news begins to scream. Are you afraid to see the face of your enemy? And are you breaking every mirror as a remedy? When every family on the planet's in flames, you won't wait inside. Don't say that you'll pay for your ride. Don't stay in your spaceship and hide. And every need demands a needle. Every habit wants my satisfaction. But what I got won't get me stopped in any clinic or a 12-step scene. Are you afraid to see the face of your enemy? And are you breaking every mirror as a remedy? When every family on the planet's in flames, you won't wait inside. Don't say that you'll pay for that ride. Don't stay in your spaceship and hide. Oh, can't hear the ranting of my neighborhood's incendiary random madmen. Can't see the pistols or the prisons when I'm passing through the stratosphere. This is the instant I awaken like an infant to the revelation. I am surrounded in this land of stranded astronauts, all strapped in cockpits, lost and desperate in a spaced age dream. Are you afraid to see the face of your enemy? And are you breaking every mirror as a remedy? When every family on the planet's in flames, you won't wait inside. Don't say that you'll pay for that ride. You know you can't pay for your ride. Don't stay in your spaceship and hide.
The 15th edition of the Kentucky Heartwood Music Festival is scheduled for Saturday, July 31st 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., rain or shine. The festival features a youth talent contest, art exhibitors, children's activities, workshops, and original bands like our friend NATO. More information can be found at KentuckyHeartwood.org. Thanks for the song, Nate.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity, and we'll see everyone in Millville Saturday, 3 o'clock.
Awesome. So, folks, thanks so much for tuning in. Next week on Kernels of Truth, we're going to have Doug Price is Right. And he is going to be doing a deep dive into Toyota's campaign cash and the Sedition Caucus, well timed as the January 6th congressional hearings continue in Washington, D.C. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, or CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. More information can be found at progresskentucky.org about how to volunteer and support ongoing efforts. Production services and media content are provided by Couchfire Media. Couchfire Media ignites multi-camera, live stream, fiction, narrative, nonfiction, educational, informative, animation, and commercial video product content. Woo! More information about Couchfire Media can be found at www.couchfiremedia.com. Check out our co-host Kimberly Cecil Jones' other efforts. The Jones Report is a weekly live national local news talk and conversation show that occurs every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Hosted by Mike Breuer, Betsy Foster, and our own Kimberly Cecil Jones. The Jones Report radio program can be found on Facebook at the Jones Report Radio. And as always, thank you, Nate, for the theme songs. You can find more information and music at natosongs.com and hear him play live Saturday. He'll be going on at about 5. And this is WLXU 93.9 LP FM, Radio Lexington, the voice of the people. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth and our guests are not necessarily the views of Radio Lex or its board of directors. The views expressed on Progress Kentucky's Kernels of Truth are our own. If you miss our weekly show on Radio Lex, don't worry. Live videocasts, content, and source links can be found on Facebook and YouTube. Well, YouTube sometimes. Audio podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and others by searching Progress Kentucky. Links to all our media platforms can be found at progresskentucky.org. Once again, thank you so much, folks, for tuning in. If you stayed all the way to the end of these credits, kudos.
Kudos, she deserves a star, a gold star for that. We love you for it.
Aren't we supposed to do something nice for somebody? It's let's do something nice for somebody.
That's what Kimberly does. Nice. I just do mean things for people. That's Kimberly's take. That's what she does.
Kim's not here.
She's not here, so it's the wolves are eating their own without.
So this week we're all supposed to be mean to people.
No, live your best life every single day and wear a mask.
Ken, I'm not going to tell you what to do.
I'm going to wear a mask.
And treat others how you would like to be treated.
But wear a mask. Have Kimberly back next week, and she'll bring her own unique
Kimberlyisms.
Yes, Kimberlyisms.
And wear a mask.
I will say this: if you're still watching, thank you very much for your patience, and we appreciate your ongoing attention.
Let me sit up.
Are we still live?
We are. Nobody said play the credits. I think we should play the credits.
I think we should
just read the credits. Like, wasn't that what you?